are going live.
And you got
All right, golden... Ryan Martin. We're live, brother.
And you got that golden jersey in the back, man.
Okay, let me talk. It's my podcast. When you get your own, you get to talk. All right. So, Ryan Martin, San Diego legacy. I met you, Orange County, and officially a dad. What's your son's name and how old is he?
Arik, and he's 11 months. So we're there.
11 months, dude. And so when's his first birthday?
Next month, June.
Nice. We got this recorded, so I don't have to ask you again. I can just go back and reference this.
Put it in your calendar. Make it easy on yourself. Annual reoccurring.
Where is Ryan from? Where are you born?
Oh, shoot, man. Montana.
Okay. And then at what age do you end up in California?
3. So I grew up in Long Beach and then Mission Viejo, and then bounced around Southern California, mostly Orange County, and a little bit of Long Beach. What part of Long Beach? Right next to Cal State Long Beach.
So that's right.
The pyramid. 2 very distinct areas. You know where it is. You know exactly where it is.
McNabb and Atherton. Is that where that would be?
Yep. McNabb and Atherton, and then the other way would be in Lakewood, right in the dead end of Los Coyotes diagonal. And so it was a fun place to grow up. It was a really fun city to grow up. Actually, it was flat, unlike Mission Viejo, where you could skateboard and ride your bike everywhere. Mission Viejo is just nothing but hills.
So this is like 1990s. What are we doing for fun? We're skating around the neighborhood, getting in trouble.
Oh, I mean, back then you can get away with anything. So, our friend's older brother would take us. He'd drive his car onto elementary school tarmacs. Because back then the tarmacs were huge in Long Beach. They're just sprawling elementary schools, and we'd get a rope and get pulled behind the car, and then bounce before the cops came, or a neighbor called the cops, and it was fun. It was really fun. And then we moved to Mission Viejo, going into 5th, 6th, 7th grade. And that's when we went to South Orange County.
So 5th, 6th, 7th, where are you going to middle school at? Is that Trabuco?
No, that was high school Trabuco, but middle school was Los Lisos, which was an interesting middle school because it splintered off to 4 high schools. So we went to Mission Viejo, Trabuco, Laguna Hills, El Toro, the Fantastic Four.
Gotcha. So Mustangs, right? That's high school?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But what was interesting about my high school career, though, is that's when I got in the swing of traveling for paintball in a serious way. So freshman year, I was wrestling and playing paintball and traveling. By sophomore year, I was traveling so often that the school basically gave me an ultimatum, like, hey, you have to go to an alternative school or we can't graduate you to the next degree because my attendance was so low. I was traveling back then it was NPPL and paintball sports promotions, or it was NPPL. Yeah, it was like 2 or 3 leagues. And so what ended up happening is I did freshman year at a high school, half my sophomore, half my junior, and then senior year, I went homeschool 100% just because the sport was taking me out of school so often that I had no other choice if I wanted to graduate.
And what team are you playing for in this era?
At that time, it was all San Diego Legacy.
Nice.
Well, maybe not San Diego Legacy the whole way through because, it was, it was Sitting Ducks early on with Rusty and Gator Glaze, Isaac Barrow, Whisper Josh, Josh from Aftermath. And then then it was like Paintball Junkies. It was Impact Factory. It was Diablo Factory. It was, a bunch of different teams. And then, Legacy was created through Flashpoint, which was, the story with LJ and how you guys met at the Paintball Players Club. But, with LJ, it was Flashpoint. And then we formed San Diego Legacy with I think it was at the time a team called Impact. Nice. And that's how San Diego Legacy was created that had to have been in there. That had to have been maybe 2001, 2002. Yeah.
That sounds right to me because I was a freshman in high school in 2001 because I remember being a freshman when 9/11 happened.
Yep.
And I do remember seeing you playing with Eddie Dunca. Am I saying that right?
Yep. That was for the PPC Factory.
For PPC Factory. So whatever that era is are kind of like my earliest Ryan Martin memories.
Yeah, so we left. So LJ and I left Legacy to go to PPC Factory and then ended up coming back. And LJ and I ended up playing at the Huntington Beach a tournament where this was before they put turf on the sand. We actually played on the sand for PPC Factory in that tournament. But yeah, before that, I mean, it was the Pan American tournament, and that was kind of the bridge between woods ball and hyperball, and then airball came and everything else.
Gotcha.
But, yeah.
Yeah, I remember that one in the sand. I remember a lot of dudes in between points or games back then, because each game essentially was a point. It was a lot of dudes like air hosing out their guns and stuff. It was wild.
It was nasty.
Wild West.
It was nasty. Like, you were running in sand, so try sprinting in sand. I mean, that's basically what it was, with a full pack. And back then, the paintball gear had no swag. It was like you're wearing snowboard pants, or like something that MC Hammer was wearing. Everything was super baggy. It's like, what are we wearing back then? I don't know, but it was like 12 pounds just in clothes, and it was kind of a funny era. But yeah,
I kind of remember JT swag still being cool. I don't know exactly when they got like the cool like JT racing pants. You know what I'm talking about, like the iconic Dynasty ones.
Yeah.
But JT had some cool stuff. But yeah, anything dye was just heavy. I don't know why. It was heavy. Unnecessarily heavy and big. Like those cleats. Oh my gosh, it was like wearing bricks if you ever wore those cleats.
Yeah, for sure. And I think part of it was that the industry was coming out of the woods and going into like more of an athletic gameplay. And so there was still kind of that like that market demand for durability, because back then speedball was on like really hard packed dirt and like railway ties, or spools. Huge wires came off. So you had like spool fields, and you had rail tie fields and hyperball fields. And so I think there was just a little bit of durability aspect, but certainly not what we have now, where everyone's streamlined and much more athletic, fit, feel, comfort.
Right on. Yeah. Do you remember like what kind of gun you were shooting in those days?
That was, with Legacy, it was early Legacy. I was actually shooting a Bob Long Intimidator that Gary Show's let me borrow.
Nice.
And that thing was so unbelievably fast.
Yeah.
That was a fast marker. And then once we became a die team and a proto team, then of course the DMs and the protos and everything else. But prior to that, it was kind of like, shoot what you got, and shoot what paint you can get. And then that was the Ron Kilborn era of the world, and the
Bushwhackers.
Yeah, Bushwhackers. Yeah, it was like the OG. It was like the OG paintball scene of like the late '90s, early 2000s. So it was kind of that era where you had Angels, you had autocockers, and everything was being electrified. And so it was a pretty unique period of time for at least the paintball industry. It was super fun.
I was one of those bros rocking a Black Magic autococker. I'd saved up, like all summer to buy this thing. I think I paid like $750 for it, and maybe like $850 because the guy like threw in a hopper and a mask and whatever. Yep. So like got a bundle deal there, and I was shooting that with the X-Board Revy. You needed like the extra software and the 6-blade prop to just get that thing cranking as fast as it could.
Absolutely.
Doing the old autococker off the break shooting. But I remember one-balling so many people with it, and like I would pick up an Angel and I'd try and do the same thing. I just couldn't. And to me, the Angel, it was cool and all was fast, but like I really enjoyed just that first ball out of the barrel being right where I wanted to be.
So crispy. Those Black Magics were very crispy.
Oh yeah, you didn't have to do anything to it. It was the first autococker, in my opinion. Maybe you could argue the STO, but like out of the box, that thing is going to shoot good for you.
Yeah, no doubt about it. The autocockers were probably the flattest and most consistent shot of a marker. And you're right, the WDP Angels, I mean, light trigger pulls completely changed the trajectory of paintball markers as technology kind of changed. But it was either you were either shooting a vertical feed STO, Angel, or there was Bushmasters, the Bushmakers, and you had the big brick shockers as well. But it was a really interesting time to be playing the sport. God,
those shockers are ugly.
They were bad. Although I will give Shocker the credit, because they did come out with that bonsai splash, and that bonsai splash Anna was actually pretty sick. It was like the 1998, 1999, and you look at an old paintball magazine. If the only thing that had like the really cool Anno job was those brick shockers, And so that was pretty cool.
Who made the impulse back then? Was that the same people that made the Bushmaster?
I wish I could remember. I don't know.
I remember some pretty cool impulses, like specifically like a strange impulse that was like a yellow to like pinkish orange fade, and they were pretty cool.
Yeah.
And those shot fast too back then. Like everybody's gun just shot fast. You know what I mean?
Not so fast. Well, and then you had an era of paintball where, the paintball essentially, went from pneumatic to electric. And then as teams got smart or programmers got smart, you had, the Eggy boards, you had the Tadao boards, you had, that was when paintball got really interesting. And that was that shift from, 7-man, 5-man to X-ball format.
Or, the arms race.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And that was gnarly. I mean, that was when, 23, 25 balls a second was like, if you weren't shooting over 20, your gun was slow. And,
right.
You could run straight to the X, shooting the corners and just blow the corners up and to wrap at the X and just smash people. It was like you're pointing like a laser beam at people and just like chopping them down with a laser beam. It was the most beautiful thing ever in the world if you had the right gun and the setup.
Yeah, I remember the word debounce, like specifically, and I personally was not hopping on the field unless I was shooting like 19 to 21 balls a second. So when people talk about like 15 balls, bring it back, I'm like, I don't even remember that era. I remember walking on the field 21 balls a second and just shooting absolute laser beams, like you said, at people.
Yeah, it was gnarly. And then the guns became so fast, they had to start putting pins around the X, right, to try to block some of the lanes. Those shooting lanes were, looking back at the field layouts, they were wide open. I mean, wide open.
Yeah, shout out to HK Army Kenny, because I remember him specifically being able to play those pins. And there were certain plays on Legacy that were just like built around Kenny is going to go up the X and just bunker somebody.
Oh, totally. Yeah. Kenny
was fast. This is pre-broken leg Kenny. He was quick.
Yeah.
Anyways.
The whole Legacy crew was so fun. I mean, we had so many people come through that camp. I mean, you can go through the roster and it was a really good group of people, super fun to play with. Everyone, I mean, some of the guys are still playing at high level. And then the guys that we were playing against, a lot of them are still playing at very, very high levels.
Yeah, if you could talk to me a little more about Gary Showers. Like, I know he was a mentor to you. He was obviously a father to Ryan and Nick. Yep. So tell me a little bit about that, relationship, that friendship, and kind of what Gary meant to you. Yeah,
Gary is an OG in the paintball world. And, he was playing with the good, the bad, the ugly. I think the team was back in the 80s and 90s. And I might be butchering that team. So if I am, I apologize. But yeah, I met Gary through PB Nation. There was someone on PB Nation I was trying to find somewhere else to play with, someone else, another team to jump on with. And there were tryouts. I think Ryan was coming in, Ryan Showers was coming in to play. And so I tried out for their team. I think it was like my novice year after playing with the Sitting Ducks for a while. And the Sitting Ducks kind of fills it out a little bit. I think Rusty and Gator went on to do something else. And so, Gary essentially took me under his wing. It was fantastic. I mean,
nice.
I listened to your last podcast and you said you were like the broke kid on the rich street, right?
That was, dude. Yeah, you knew it.
You and I, we share a very similar story in that we lived in a great neighborhood, but maybe didn't have as many resources as other people. And Gary would help me. I mean, he would help take care of paint. He would help take care of entry. I mean, he really did take me under his wing. He would drive me to and from tournaments to practice. I mean, we'd go to Vegas and play at Pan Am when Pan Am was around. And, he was very accommodating and super helpful. And that whole family is just aces. So we went from playing novice, and I think at the time it was Impact or Paintball Junkies Factory. And since that tryout, really, I was able to just kind of jump on with Ryan and Nick and Gary and kind of ride that wave with them from, novice all the way to the NXL and the pro division. I wish I would have continued playing, but that's a whole nother story. Right. But yeah, Gary was an ace. I mean, I can't, where he helped me go in my paintball career is incredible. So, but he was like that to a lot of people. I mean, all of Legacy, the whole camp, Gary really took care of and cared about everybody. And, he had that big ass white Hummer. He'd pull up and we'd set up the field at 7 a.m. and get that nailed in, and he'd bring pallets of paint. And he was driving to and from Die every day, picking up practice paint. And I mean, he really made it happen for us in a major way. I mean, hell, Mark Kress and Scott Kress, and I mean, Bobby Vilas came through that camp at one point.
Shout out Bobcat.
Yeah, shout out to Bobcat for sure. I mean, almost everyone in SoCal had some sort of connection. Either we were, scrimmaging all the time or in that mix, or they came through the camp. But he was certainly very well known and a major impact player and person in the SoCal paintball industry and scene.
Right. Yeah, I specifically remember because SC was laid out a little differently. It's similar, but you guys used to set up on that top field. Like there was a lower field kind of where like me and the divisional guys would practice. And then there was that top field that was just a dirt lot. And we had to bring our own airball field and set that up. And you knew the Shows arrived because they would arrive in style in a Hummer and they'd all be in there together. And that's kind of when like practice got serious,
Yeah. I think Gary brought like you're right, a level of professionalism to the scene that may not have been at SC Village prior to him saying, "Hey, I'm gonna make this commitment to this team. I'm gonna make this commitment to practice hard." And so we lived at SC Village Saturday and Sunday, every single day for 6-7 years. I mean, it was like a daily. It was just kind of where we were. I mean, you were in the scene. I mean, you saw it all. So yeah.
Yeah, I think I started playing at SC. I want to say like either 2000 or 2001. Legitimately, the first time I played paintball was walk-ons at SC with my friend Ryan Martin Ryan Latham. Sorry, you're Ryan Martin. There's too many Ryans in my life. I got a Grosh, a Martin, a Latham, a Meckling. Anyways, there were a lot of Ryans in the early 90s and 2000s. So anyways, playing with Latham, we're playing walk-ons. And then, I don't know if you remember, you'd play walk-ons all day. And then at the end of the day, they'd bring you over the hyperball fields.
That's right.
And it would be like, you'd literally like go up the hill. So it's like Legoland, and then you'd play like the rocket field and then the double lay down. And then you'd call it a day.
That's exactly it. Yeah. And I think that was a really good system for SC Village to kind of give people exposure to that tournament side. It's very intimidating. I mean, if you're playing walk-ons and you're playing with, back then it was you can choose pump or semi-automatic, and you're kind of tinkering around with Tippmanns or whatever it was at the time. And then you hear these guys just laying paint down. And the sound that the paint makes when it hits hyperball, it's a different sound than going through the trees or something, right? And so it's like super intense. And getting that exposure to walk-ons is a really good way to get them to transition into a different form of paintball. So yeah, that was, I mean, the DeGidio family, again, another legacy family in the sport that brought all of us up. I mean, heck, when you were on Naughty by Nature playing with Bear, we coached that. I coached that Huntington Beach tournament for you guys, and we put it on some people, man. That was really fun.
I was Snake Off the Break D-Rock, and I remember you specifically because you were coming to that event. I think you were playing like franchise with Legacy, and you guys weren't allowed to play the MPPL. If that seems
there was there was a time where the teams were kind of really, or the tournament series were really adamant about you're either us or them.
Right. So I remember we're playing semi-pro with Naughty by Nature. This was when it was that like kind of weird pro-am bracket where you had to play two events, and then you'd either have to bump up to pro or I think that's kind of how it worked. Like you had to play two of those events, and then you could like try out for a pro spot essentially. Yep. So this was our first semi-pro event, and we had the Naughty Dogs and Diesel as our like pro teams, and we beat both of them, which was kind of crazy. And with you coaching, and specifically with like some game plans that you came up with. So for me to be like, I think I was maybe 15 years old, maybe 16, to beat like Rocky Newth and Matt Chim and like guys that I had looked up to and seen in magazines, I was like, all right, dude, I can do this. Like I can play with some of the best in the game and compete.
Yeah, no doubt. And what was cool about paintball back then is there was no sideline coaching. So, now there's no sideline coaching, but I think if, maybe some people don't remember that, but there was a point where you'd be sideline coaching and people would just act like a robot, right? Someone would be sitting on the snake side just telling you, hey, pop up, shoot the Dorito one, stay down. I'll let you know when he's coming,
Right. Highway.
And then he's coming up the highway and blow him up. Or you would counter coach and say he's coming and he's not, and you get fucking God coming out, excuse my French, coming out and, looking down the tape when nobody's coming. So that was when you had to play very strategic paintball. You set it, and by the way, back then every field was different, so it wasn't the same layout. You'd walk the fields, create a plan, and then execute that plan. There's no second point. It's just one point, and then it's, how many points did you get per body, per flag pull, and then per flag hang, and you tally up the points at the end of the day and see where you sit. So that was a very unique type of paintball, and I think that created players, and a lot of paintball intelligence and play intelligence. And then there was an era where actually paintball got dumbed down, and players were being told what to do versus actually playing the game. When X-Ball had that sideline coaching. Doritos side, of course, you're on your own. Your pick couldn't tell you anything. But the fan side, the spectator side, you could sideline coach all day long.
Yeah, I played both and I love both. Like I saw kind of the tacticalness of the MPPL and 7-man and making that big sneaky move in a car wash, which was definitely a lot of fun. But then at the same time, I loved yelling at people in X-Ball. I remember counter coaching in X-Ball as being just a full-on spectator event. It got the whole crowd involved, and somebody gets bunkered and it's oh, and the crowd goes wild, and bonus following and flags in the air. It was just chaos. It felt like a UFC event. You know what I mean? It felt like you were watching two titans just go at it.
Yeah, I was gonna say hockey, because the same thing with hockey, right? The crowd is always heckling someone, or someone's getting in a fight and the crowd's cheering and excited about it. So yeah, totally agree. It definitely brought the spectators and the audience into the gameplay. Absolutely. Right. I mean, there's pros and cons at all. I think just from a player's intelligence level, if you have no coach, it's you and your buddy, right? Or you and your team, and you're really trying to figure out where things are at, where the lanes are, and where the opening is. So I think that's more of a chess match, whereas the other version might be more of a fist fight. Okay, let's keep swinging, And
I had Greg Pauly and Mike Hinman coaching me, so it was rad.
Yeah,
if you want to fight either of my coaches, stand by. Good luck. Totally. They were ready for it.
Yeah. Mike Hinman. I mean, he built camps. I mean, he built probably the most winning team in divisional history with the aftermath. I mean, your squad was unstoppable. I think that one season, I don't know if it was 2004 or 2003, but you guys, I think you guys lost 4 points the whole season. I mean, it was some stupid, ridiculous.
Not quite that good, but I appreciate that. It
was pretty damn good, man.
We lost.
Pretty damn good.
We got 1 second place in PSP events. That was to Titman Effect. Won every other event, basically swept World Cup. And then we jumped up to Division 1 for MPPL, and we won that too.
Yeah.
So we went from playing D3 X-Ball with a bunch of kids that had never played a national event. By the end of the season, we were winning D1 and MPPL.
Yeah. Yeah, that was a tough camp. But you guys were out there every weekend. I mean,
literally every weekend.
Yeah, every weekend, and then Saturday, Sunday, sun up to sundown. It was real. It was real.
I'll never forget, man. I was a senior in high school, and I had this girl, Angie, that would ask me every Monday, so what'd you do this weekend? I'd be like, I played paintball, and she's like, oh, okay, and then asked me the next week. She's like, so what'd you do this weekend? I'm like, I played paintball again. And then so this goes on for months. And then she's like, let me guess, Derek, you played paintball all weekend. I'm like, yeah, I did actually. Had a tournament and we won it. And she's like, oh, cool. And but it was just so funny to me because it's what else would I be doing? What else would I be doing with my weekends if I'm not playing paintball?
Well, that reminds me of the story of you walking into PPC and seeing LJ doing his homework.
Oh, yeah. Me and LJ were always just great friends from the first moment I met him.
Well, the funny part about it is his when his reply to you was like, I'm doing homework, as if that's normal to be doing homework in a paintball store, right?
So I'm probably looking at auto cocker upgrades or saving up for a boomstick, right? And I knew LJ from high school, not well, but I knew of him. So yeah, this is probably freshman year again. And I see him on the couch in PPC and some girl, and I'm the girl's reading to him or something. I'm like, so his mom, what is going on? I'm like, LJ, what's up, dude? What are you doing here? He's like, math homework, obviously. And I'm just like, whoa, dude, my bad. Of course this is where we do our math homework. Why not?
Yeah. Why wouldn't I be doing my math homework here?
Yeah.
That was a fun time. I mean, talking about just mentorship in general. I think if you look back at, the progression of life and you mentioned Gary Show's. Another individual that comes to mind is, of course, James Wilkes. Yeah, big man. That guy's he's a fantastic person and great coach, great mentor, great fighter, great trainer, all that stuff, right? But
does that bring back memories?
Yeah, exactly. Training on the mat, halfway in a triangle and making faces at you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you kind of going first look with the hat real quick, right? The whole Dad Army thing is like you kind of look back at your life and you kind of see kind of who's played different roles in your life. And I think as a dude, having those mentors like a Gary Shaw's in your life to walk you through a stage. And then the next stage was James Wilkes for me. And you kind of went through a similar path in that part of your life as well with paintball and maybe Mike Hinman being that kind of role model, or Sean, right? Being that role model for that period. And then transitioning into the fight scene where, we were training martial arts just as heavy, if not more heavy than paintball. And, right. You have these kind of people come in and out of your life at certain periods of time. And so it's interesting to see what that mentorship brings, where it leads you. And then how that affects your decision-making going forward. So Gary Shaw's was a major figure from, call it 7th grade, 8th grade in my life, all the way up until, I was like, all the way into my early 20s, but a couple of years in between there where I was still playing paintballs, when you met James, and then we started training, and then it became, hey, let's shoot people and let's fight people. And so that became the life for a couple of years, which was really, really fun.
So, a little bit of football in there too. I remember you kind of training for college football, if I'm not mistaken.
That was at Saddleback. Yeah, that was at Saddleback. But that football thing was more so just to get stronger for fighting. I wasn't interested in pursuing football. It was more so I got to go to college, or at least I thought I did. Go to college, do something, and then you can sign up for basically strength training, which was done with the football team. And then so during the summer, I would run routes and stuff like that, but wasn't really, my purpose was not to be on that team. My purpose was to train for paintball and fighting.
Gotcha. Yeah. I had a very similar lifestyle, and, I live, like, I remember riding my bike to your house a few times from me living over by the lake and you being right next to Tribuca.
Yeah. Yeah. And the lake, another thing too, right? Like I would suggest that we had good parents, but I would also suggest we were very free range.
Yeah,
like we kind of always joke we're pirates, right? You're kind of broke, so you got to try to figure out how to make things work, and sneak into wild rivers, like tag along with friends, get rides places, figure out how to fill up the gas tank, get to where you want to go, So, finding these type of figures in your life that can give you a little bit of direction, being a free range kid was super important, because you know how it is. If you don't have some sort of direction or some sort of mentor or some sort of purpose, man, you can get off the bandwagon pretty quick. And even with that structure, there's all sorts of things, that happen and we went through. And, you name it, that's probably what I'm talking about. Like there's all sorts of different ways your life can go. And even through that mentorship, you're still kind of, messing around with this stuff and maybe doing this and that and the other and partying or whatever else. Right. It can get sideways pretty quick.
Yeah, definitely. It was very easy to go down a dark path if you had no goals, no purpose, and you're in Orange County and there's like opiates, there's, probably cocaine at some point. And it's like, for me, it was paintball though. It was like, I was always focused on that. I knew I either wanted to go pro in paintball or become a Navy SEAL. And the Navy SEAL goal was always the bigger one. And, the more tournaments I won, I was like, dude, maybe I could do this paintball thing. Cause I saw Dynasty doing it. I remember Excessive coming around and like talks of big sponsors and stuff like that. So I was like, dude, maybe this is an option for me. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, the big one was the Ollie Lang Ironman $100,000 contract deal, right? I was like, okay, there might be something here. There might be something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I remember that. But it's still, even before that with like Dynasty and JT, like I just remember thinking like, obviously they're doing it, like they're playing all the time. So,
right.
However they're making money on the side, like it's just really a hustle at that point. It's cool today because there actually are dudes like, Goldman, like Marcelo, like Tyler Harmon, like Rainey, that are just playing paintball and making a living out of it. That's pretty cool to see after all those years and, the time that me and you put into the game.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, the one thing I think I would have been a lot would have been really beneficial to do is to continue playing after I left Legacy. But I think what I kind of used that as a means to kind of focus on the fighting thing with James. You kind of use that to kind of get into a career, because I think the one thing with paintball that I realized early on is my birthday always fell on a tournament. So for like 5 years, 6 years, 7 years, I never celebrated a birthday with friends or family. It was always like on the road somewhere. Right. And then, you're sacrificing all of your weekends, and you're sacrificing, almost a career, because the travel, the amount of travel that's required and the time. So, being in your late teens, early 20s and kind of figuring that out, it's like, okay, maybe it was a blessing and a curse that the Legacy thing, I was cut and turned off from that, but because it opened up other doors. But I certainly look at, like you said, some of the guys that are still playing. It's like, man, that would have been pretty fun to continue down that path. I just imagine what it would have been like if we had social media back then. I mean, that would have been. I mean, that was when reality TV shows were starting up, but we didn't have the means to really film everything we were doing. But man, that would have been something else to see. There
would have been a lot of viral HK videos.
Oh my God, still are. Yeah, but back then for sure. Yeah, in a major way. So. Yeah, I think the paintball thing worked out really well for what I needed it for and how it served me. And then I think the shift to fighting and then career path was exactly what I needed to. And I think we all have our own journeys. But while we're in it, I saw that industry change from the mid 90s really into the early 2000s. I think my last tournament was 2004, 2005 ish, and then I kind of disconnected from there.
Yeah.
And then just like everyone, it sucks you back in 10 years later, right? And you're playing on some divisional team for fun and having a good time with friends again.
Just us.
That's right. Yeah, absolutely.
So yeah, let's fast forward a little bit to the Just Us era, because I know that'll lead into Dad Army well, because that's kind of when you got your feet wet a little bit in apparel.
Yeah. So, I think before that, it's, apparel's been something I've always been interested in for sure. But, I think growing up around Marky and Jay and Scotty and all those guys that are doing HK Army and kind of being a part of that movement, you kind of look at that and go, okay, that's really cool. I'd like to do something like that, right? But, my career path took me into finance. It took me into different entrepreneurial type stuff. But with the Just Us thing, I thought, hey, this was a really interesting concept. We had a great squad. It was super fun. We're playing with a bunch of friends. And so sell some hats along the way, right? And you're wearing one right now. And with you and Rory and the crew, we started. Hell, Just Us is still playing. I mean, it's crazy, right? In the NXL, the Canadian squad's still going. Shout out to Derek Thompson, right? I mean, DT's still out there playing. So, that still lives, and that ethos is still out there. And the whole ethos with that was like, I think you or Rory came up with it, where someone said, "Hey, who's playing?" It's like, "Hey, it's just us. All we need is us. We don't need anything else. Let's just get out there and play." But a squad there. And so we had a good divisional squad that was playing in Mike's league, the WC PPL, and went pretty heavy in that for 2 or 3 years, right? And then that kind of fizzled out as all good things do at some point. And then so that's what kind of I don't know if you want to dig into anything into that Just Us era or not, but that's kind of the gist of it.
Yeah, let's dig it up. So I remember, let's see, Aftermath came back around. Mike had that tryout. I went to the tryout. I made the team. Me and Mike weren't exactly seeing eye to eye, which happens, And to be honest, I couldn't commit anyways because I was still an active duty Navy SEAL. So like, for whatever reason, I was dating Nicole at the time. I was separated from Rebecca. We were officially divorced. And I was like, man, I need something else to just bring joy in my life on weekends again. And paintball was there. Camp Pendleton was close. It's like an hour drive from me where I was at. Like I was living basically on the beach in Imperial Beach, right down to Yield Plank, if anybody knows that bar. So yeah, I tried out for Aftermath. I made the team. Me and Mike had our disagreement, and I was like, all right, well, whatever. Maybe Rory. I kind of wanted to play with you and Rory anyways, so it wasn't really any sweat off my back. I remember Rory being like, "Just Us," and he like quoted some like rap video. And I was right there with him. I'm like, I like it, Just Us, because we don't have sponsors. We don't have anything like fancy. None of us are rich or wealthy like we grew up playing for, like Gary Schaus and me playing for Greg Grosh. So much respect to Greg Grosh and funding my early paintball career on OC Kids. Yep. It's Just Us. So, I had made some money on Bitcoin. I think I first got into it at like $300. we don't need to bring up how Ryan knew it was going to be successful at $1 and didn't quite invest, but Derek did. I put all the extra money I had into Bitcoin and Ethereum, and I think I first bought at 300 and sold everything when it went up to 16 grand. And dude, if I would have known today, looking back through a crystal ball, I'd have a lot of money. But it's all good.
Can't trade in the rearview mirror. Can't invest.
Because I had a lot of fun, man. Like I don't know if you remember that World Cup trip we did. Like
absolutely. That was one of the big Just Us tournaments, was the World Cup, and then Texas, and
right.
It was all local, and then that started to catch some momentum, and then we went out to the national events.
Yeah, like I remember flying Brad out, and I booked the Airbnb, and I'm sure you guys chipped in, for stuff. But I was like, dude, I'm booking this either way. I got the money.
You kind of forced the issue by writing the initial check and making it happen.
Yeah, I was like, look, you guys, it's booked. If you want to chip in, chip in. If you can't afford it, just come out and play. I don't care. My role was like, if you make it to World Cup, and I think I kept bugging you. I'm like, Ryan, come on, you're gonna have fun. You're gonna have fun. It's World Cup.
Yeah, it was a blast.
And I did that to you a lot in our childhood, talking you into bad ideas, like for better or for worse. I remember riding a bike to your house like at 7 or 8 o'clock on a Saturday, be like, let's go to the beach, man. Wake up.
Oh yeah. Well, that was guaranteed. We just got to figure out how to get there, jump in the red truck and go.
Yeah. It's so funny because I think kids these days are really missing out on that. I'll never forget the feeling of like riding your bike around your neighborhood and you don't quite know where everybody is, but everybody's like out. You knock on one friend's house, there's nobody there. You knock on another house, nobody there. And then all of a sudden you see it, dude. It's like a pile of like 15 bikes on somebody's lawn. And you're like, that's the house, dude. So you run up, knock, and be like, what are we doing today, guys? Like, I want to go to the beach. Who's with me? And you get like 3 or 4 guys. Okay, who's going to drive us? Who can get like $20 for pizza or tacos, whatever.
Yep.
And that was your day. You'll figure the rest out later. But it's like you get a ride to the beach. You get like $20 from your parents if you're lucky. If not, you're just going to be hungry. And then having a ride.
Find it in the couch cushion, whatever, right?
Because a lot of times you could like sell your parents on like, well, Ryan's mom can drop us off. Like, is there any way you guys could pick us up at like Salt Creek at like, 4:30, 5 o'clock, like right before the sun's going down? And they'd be like, okay, and you're like, let's go. Like, we're going to be at the beach all day.
Well, the worst about that was if you were late and they've already left. Now you got to figure out, how am I getting down to the beach? And then what beach are they at? Are they at Strands? Are they at Salt Creek? Are they at 10th Street?
Yeah.
Where's the crew at? And that's the other part of that equation. But you're right. Honestly, there is something special about that hunt, right? You're going to check the plaza. You're going to check your 4 buddies' friends, and you're going to start getting that radius a little bigger, trying to find where everyone's clicked up for the day.
If a squad of friends went to the beach without like trying to contact me at all, like that was a red flag. That was almost like, I don't know. Your loyalty to my friendship is definitely in question right now.
Yeah, exactly right. Exactly right. And that was the beautiful thing about the Orange County scene is like, we can either go pirate the lake, right? We can go pirate the beach. Yeah. And we're either surfing, bodyboarding, or diving in Lake Mission Viejo and Pirates Cove. But there was always water. That was the beautiful thing about Orange County. You can do something with water and be in the water and around it any day of the week. Winter is a little different. Yeah. Winter is you're playing paintball or snowboarding, whatever. But during the summer months, spring months, early fall, a good swell comes in, throw on a wetsuit and go. And so, that was super fun. I mean, I remember 10th Street before Laguna Beach was a show. It was a very quiet beach, and the world didn't know about Laguna Beach until that show came out. And then it blew the spot up. But, 10th Street used to be quiet. I mean, there was nobody down there except some of the locals. And so you'd go down there and have nearly the whole beach to yourself. Skimboarders would be far out to the left. You'd be able to bodyboard wherever you want. And man, it was quiet. It was different. It was a lot different. I mean, you can spend the whole day down there. And it was fun. It was fun. Strands is another great beach. Dana Point Strands.
Yeah, I like Strands a lot.
Yeah, that's changed a lot too, though. But I think going back to what you were saying around finding friends and not having that cell phone, even having the cell phone still didn't guarantee you weren't going, right? Because I remember one time, we were going to play at. Do you remember the house in Palos Verdes Estates?
Mm-hmm.
And you were trying to give me directions there, and you put me on the freeway. You put me on the freeway and had me going all the way to LA. And I was supposed to go to Palos Verdes, so I went the opposite direction, right? And back then you were using, you didn't have GPS on your phone, so you're trying to use like landmarks, right? To, hey, turn left at this landmark, turn left at this street. And even that was like wild. Talk about trying to find friends in another city that you've never been to without MapQuest or GPS.
Right.
And then so eventually I got lost in LA and I asked them, hey, I'm supposed to go to Palos Verdes. And they're like, son, you're on the wrong side of side of LA. You need to go that way. And so anyways, ended up finding the place, right? But yeah, that's the type of excitement you have, is trying to figure out where people are at and where they're going. Do you remember MapQuest? You'd use a website, try to get directions to MapQuest. I mean,
dude, sometimes pages. You had to print out like 4 pages of it.
Totally. Yeah. So, I mean, even trying to figure out where to go in a new city when you're new to driving was an adventure.
Yeah.
So
I remember specifically being the passenger, like reading street signs and like reading exits. And it's like, sometimes it'd be like exit 51, or it'd be like, Alberto Avenue. And I'm like, wait, what was that last street? And you're like, Alberto. You're like, damn, that's where we were supposed to go, dude.
Yeah.
I mean, that was your first mistake, asking me to get you to Palos Verdes.
That was a terrible idea.
Little D-Rock is 15 years old, definitely not driving himself there.
Were you in the car with me, or were you on the cell phone? You may have already been there.
I was probably already there. I think
you're already there. Yeah, you're trying
because we used to drive up like Friday night and crash, sleep in the pub, Yep. And what's funny is, like, I remember Dan's house pre-HK, and I remember Dan's house after HK.
Completely different.
And I'll never forget, it all changed the first time Dynasty practiced with us there, because it was mostly us and HK wasn't around yet. At Dan's house. Right. And dude, we had like 2 or 3 scuba tanks, and Dynasty brought like 5 more. So we went from like having 2 or 3 scuba tanks to like 8, and it was just so much more epic because we could play longer. We could play more paintball. We were always limited by our scuba tanks because most of us didn't have a truck or something to drive. So we had to like wait for Dan's parents or Brandon or whoever to go fill up all the scuba tanks, and then we could play again.
Yeah. Isn't that wild? I mean, thinking about that, like, if you didn't have a compressor or it was tough. Yeah. And I remember people like Tweety, he had a scuba tank, right? So he would always go to the shop and get a scuba tank full, and he'd bring it to SD Village. I mean, he'd bring the damn thing to practice. So that if the air was down that day, you at least can go play. Yeah. It was a lot different, but it was very fun. And by the way, the paintball guns, like back then, you show up hoping your gun worked, right? And then you got to try to tech the damn thing in the parking lot. Someone have an extra this or that or the other, and timing of an autococker changed a little bit, and now you're like, I can't get this damn thing to shoot. And so it was a different. Obviously, that's early 2000s. It was different back then in a lot of ways. Very much so adventurous, because the answers weren't in your palm. It was you have to go seek those answers, talk to people, figure it out, and there's something magical about that.
Yeah, magical about that. Dude, that reminds me of this story. Super random, but my autococker broke at SC Village, and this was when I was still playing walk-ons. Like, I wasn't even really playing speedball yet. And I went to the gun tech. He's like, I don't really know how to work on autocockers. Like, I'm not the autococker guy. And he's like, this dude, like, in line behind me, like, heard the situation. He's like, dude, my friend at Tombstone fixes autocockers. Like, if you want, I'll drive you over there and get it fixed at Tombstone. And I was just like, I'm 15 years old. I don't know this guy. Like, this could be a terrible idea, but I wanted to play paintball. So I was like, let's go. So I hop in this dude's little like Civic hatchback. He seemed like a bro. He seemed cool. He instantly puts on System of a Down. And for whatever reason, I was like, all right, we're good. We're going to be fine. Like, he's good people. So we get to Tombstone.
Dude, back then you can hitchhike though. I think it was a different world. Like, I remember if I was late to wake up, I'd miss the bus, and where I went to middle school was pretty far from my house, and I'd hitchhike all the way down to middle school and back. It's like, nice. It is what it is. But I think also at that age and being a dude, probably a little safer than being at that age and being a chick. Probably wouldn't recommend it to a daughter, but maybe not even to a son, given kind of the current issues that we have out there in society. But I don't know. I never really had an issue with it. There's a lot of moms. Moms would pick me up. Are you okay, son? I'm like, I'm trying to get to work or get to school. All right, come in. How far is it? It's just down the street, down Los Feliz. Okay, let's go.
Dude, my mom around like Portola Plaza, because I lived up the hill in Rancho San Margarita. I was like that first street, like where Canyon Crest ends and the other side of that. So I was living up there, and we'd go like get groceries down at Pavilions or whatever. And my mom would see people walking with groceries, and she'd always offer them a ride. And back then, they'd usually say, "Yeah." They'd be like, "Sure," because this is somebody that's like, they're in Orange County, but maybe their car's in the shop or whatever.
Right.
And so it'd be my mom in the front, my older brother Dustin in shotgun, and it'd be me sitting next to this person with just like 2 armfuls of groceries, and I'm just like a little kid, like. I hope you're nice because this is awkward.
Yeah.
But it's a different time, and I think like at least in Orange County, people are looking out for each other a lot.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, people were looking out for each other. There wasn't like this weird societal thing where there was like this automatic fear or disconnect from a stranger.
Yeah.
And maybe it was the area, maybe it was the time, but I think throughout the 90s, it was just a different feel at a societal level. At least in Southern California, where you didn't have that fear of strangers or that worry. At least I didn't grow up with that fear or worry, but that might be unique. I don't know, but different feeling for sure. And I think even, I used to take the bus everywhere. Like I would go to the bus. What's up, Kaylee?
She can't hear you, but this is the Dad Army podcast. The Dad Pod. Just say hi.
Hi.
You only get a cameo. You can't hear Ryan though.
Yeah.
So obviously we're dads here, and I expect this to be a regular thing on the Dad Pod for me. Ryan is essentially like a godfather and uncle to Kaylee. You say hi one time.
Yeah.
But can you let us finish? We got at least like 30 minutes left.
Okay, can I ask you one question?
Yeah. What's up? Me or Ryan?
You.
Get in here. Get in the frame.
So can you be my chaperone for SeaWorld?
Yes, I can do SeaWorld. Now we got Lucy. Hold on. Lucy needs to be on camera.
Lucy,
but you got to go. Lulus, hold on. This needs to be documented, Ryan.
See, this is what we were talking about for the Dad Pod. It had to be me coming in sometime. Well, this is on accident.
This is Lucy.
Lucy.
Beloved fur baby.
That's premature graying. She's not that old. She's just stressed out all the time.
Yeah, with that life she lives, I'd be stressed too.
Got it, Dad.
Take Lulus.
See you, Kaylee.
Ryan says bye.
Bye, Dad Pod.
Bye. All right, so that's Kaylee. The reason I'm a dad, and what a little blessing she is.
Kaylee was awesome, man. When she was the number one fan of Just Us. She was at every practice. She was awesome. I mean, she grew up in the paintball world, and she has so many uncles because of it.
Yeah.
Oh, it's awesome. I mean, talk about community, right? I mean, paintball community is something special. So.
Yeah, I'll never forget. She was probably about 3 years old, and we used to joke that she was our coach or our manager or whatever. Because I wanted her, she's going to be at the field. I knew I wanted her to play one day, so I was like, learn as much as you can, have fun.
Yep.
And but we also made sure she had a little fort in my truck or wherever. She was
always super safe. She was always with someone. She always had supervision.
Yeah, it's funny because I would play a point and you'd be watching her, and then we'd switch.
Yep.
And then we get like Scotty Ariano to watch her, or Rory, whoever. So like the tribe was just looking out for Kaylee, and dude, I needed that at the time. I was going through it. I've given you your shout outs before as being just one of those consistent friends for me when I'm going through a hard time. Like coming back from Afghanistan, I was a different dude. I was a new father. I had all kinds of memories of war and was having issues with sleep in that time, and just being like, is this really what I want to do with my life? Go back to Iraq or wherever and fight again, especially with like a newborn daughter. Like I was processing a lot in those days.
Yeah. Yeah. You had the weight of the world on your shoulders back then, and stoked to see that it's come full circle. And you talked about that a little bit on the last interview with Taylor. So
yeah, Taylor's rad.
Yeah. Taylor's good dude.
I always joke with Taylor. It's like, dude, if it hit the fan tomorrow, I'd call Taylor, and he always jokes back. He's like, yeah, whose car are we taking? Like, he's a good dude to squat up with,
Yeah. Where are we going and who's getting it?
Yeah. I don't know if you and Taylor have gotten a face-to-face. I know I've told you enough stories about the guy, but
no, we haven't, but I'm sure we'll meet sometime soon.
Yeah. Because if we rewind the clock a little bit, you and James both made it to my graduation. That was a pretty special day for me.
Yeah, so we actually may have met Taylor.
He was there that day. Yeah, absolutely, he was there.
Ceremony. What's wild about being on that base is seeing like one of the most impactful things for me is obviously you were going through your graduation ceremony, and they kind of gave us a tour of some of that facility, right? And I know I'm going to butcher what it was called and whatnot, but you had all these helmets laying on the floor of everyone that rang that bell. And those helmets went all the way around that courtyard, dude.
Yeah.
And it was like, damn.
Not mine though.
No, not yours. No. But you see all these, you see who was there, right? And then who ended up staying and working through that and getting through this system. So yeah, that was a really, really rad day to be a part of that celebration ceremony for you, and having James there, I think was super important, because just like I spent a lot of time with Gary on the paintball field, we were with James, 3 hours a day for years, sometimes longer depending on if we were practicing in the morning and in the afternoons or evenings. But having someone like that teaches you how to take punches and give punches. That'll change you. And then,
absolutely.
And hey, it's okay. You get you get beat up, but just make sure you hit back, and hit back. You get hit once, hit back 2, 3, 4 times, stay up on points, stay in the fight. And so, yeah, outside of paintball, I would suggest James was probably a pretty big figure in the journey.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. For both of us, man, James was rad.
Yeah.
And he's a father as well. I'd love to get James on the podcast. That'd be a lot of fun.
Yeah, he'd be a good guest for sure. He's been through it all as well. So speaking of fatherhood, 11 months into it, you've got a 12-month or maybe a year and a month or so.
13.
And, I'm learning what you already know, right? And so I think maybe what might be helpful is talking through some lessons learned for new dads, because it's so funny. They tell you, oh, it doesn't come with a manual. They say stupid things like get all the sleep you can. You need it. It's like you can't store that sleep. But yeah, I get it now. Like you're gonna have restless nights. But I think the magic of it is you'll be. I just remember like when Arik was first born, being dead tired, dude, in the middle of the night, like 2, 3, 4 a.m. after not sleeping for like 2 days, and he's just so small, right? He fits like in your palm almost, and you're just like shushing him to sleep in the middle of the living room, and you're like, don't worry, bro, I got you. You're gonna be okay. We're gonna get through this. And like, yeah, but that's like your hell week for being a dad, is that first 2 weeks, because you're in it. You're like, job number 1, keep him alive, and then job number 2, figure out why he's crying, keep him warm, or her warm, right? And so one of the things that I found that was really helpful is just like a checklist is, and maybe we talked about this, where it's like, okay, if they're crying, there's really 4 things you have to check. Yeah. Diaper, food, burp, or swaddle.
Yep.
And if none of those work, start over from the top. Double check. Make sure it wasn't a diaper issue. Okay, then we'll take the bottle. Well, now they'll take it now, right? Or, hey, that burp didn't come out, but now it came out. But yeah, those 4, that checklist, as a new dads out there, especially new ones, that's your checklist. Like, if kids crying, it's either they're hungry, their diaper soiled, they need to burp, or they just need to feel you. They need to feel some warmth. They need to be held. Yeah. And one of those 4 will get it done. You just maybe got to try a couple cycles, but one of those 4 will get it done.
Right.
What did you find? What was your early lessons when Kaylee was first born?
Oh, bro, everything. So many. I got to narrow it down to one. Let me think.
Anything that comes to mind.
Yeah, all of it. I mean, changing a diaper with girls, man. You got to get in there and clean everything. That was a shocker. Like, it's just, it doesn't always go backwards. We'll just say it that way to keep this PG. And I haven't dealt with a boy yet. I hear that gets interesting. They could call the fire department on you and hose you off while you're trying to change.
Oh, for sure, dude. Yeah, that you open a diaper and all of a sudden you're just like, okay, there you go.
Yeah.
But I mean, being a guy, it's easier, in my opinion, to kind of probably deal with that, right? Because it's like, I just got, peed on, big deal.
Right.
Girl, you got to kind of be careful, right? Because if you're wiping a certain direction or whatever else, you kind of have to deal with. I mean, Arik, heck, if he has a blowout, I just throw him in the shower real quick, just put him under some running water and call it a day. And he's happy as a clam. He loves the water, so to him, it's all good.
Nice.
But they get in this phase where now, it's the big arch and the roll, and you're chasing him around. He's trying to crawl away as you're trying to put the diaper on him. And so, it's so funny because as soon as you think you have them figured out, they change. Like the second you think they're sleeping, that might work for a couple of days or a week or 2. And then boom, they have like sleep regression issues where now they're awake again. And so, yeah, it feels like you're just kind of always trying to figure out how to make the best of whatever situation you're going through. And what I've found peace in the chaos is I just tell myself, like, look, this is a time in a series of time frames, and 5 years from now, I'm going to wish he was this small again and he needed me crying at night, because at some point they won't, right? And so, like, embrace that suck, because these are memories that will last a lifetime. And it's not always going to be like this. And I mean, even just looking back over the last year, so much change has happened so rapidly that you can tell. I mean, time is fleeting. It's going by fast. And I know it's a cliche thing to say, but damn, being a parent and watching your kid grow even from 0 to 12 months, it's like mind boggling how fast they pick up on things and learn and mimic. And, it's wild. It's really impressive to see. So for the dads out there that aren't getting sleep, just try to embrace that, because it won't last forever. And you're going to look back and there will be a period of time, maybe 5-10 years from now, where you're going to miss that. And so I know it sucks now, but just embrace every single moment of it.
Yeah. Hang in there, one foot in front of the other.
That's it. Yeah. That's it.
Well, Ryan, we're coming up on an hour, and this is where I like to ask some questions from Rebecca. And, I got another hour in me, for the record, so it's really kind of on you. I know you got Michelle and Arik at the house, but let me pull this up real quick.
Yeah, I'm good to go longer if you want to dive into anything.
Yeah, let's do it. All right, hold up. Got to scroll. All right. Anything that caught you off guard about fatherhood?
The first 3 days I didn't sleep.
3 days, no sleep.
Yeah, and it wasn't by like because it was so disturbing. It was because I was on so high alert.
Yeah,
you know what I mean. It wasn't because he wasn't sleeping. It was because I was just like, keep this kid alive. And so you've probably experienced the same thing. You just wake up and go, is he breathing? And like you just kind of touch his chest or see if he's breathing, right? It's this weird thing where like you're hypersensitive. Here's what else caught me off guard. There was an instant elevation in empathy toward everybody in the world.
Like, been there.
Empathy. Like you get it to an nth degree. Like I can look at my son and I see people that I know that like, I'm just like, oh, you're like a little kid and there's some things that happened. And so it changes your mindset around people and your level of empathy is heightened. And then the other part of it, which was really weird because it's completely counter to what I just said, is I wanted to become very violent. It was like this
big surprise,
not toward Eric,
yeah.
Or excuse me. It was just like this heightened level of willingness to be violent and like this I don't know, this mindset of protectionism or just something in my mind that like you just become like really hypersensitive to like threats and threat assessment and looking around you, and then like a willingness to engage. It was a completely different so like simultaneously I'm wanting to cry and wanting to fight. It was like that was kind of my world for like the first 2 weeks, is like looking at the kid, my heart's melting, looking at Arik, my heart's melting, and then the other part of me is like I'll run through a brick wall for this guy.
Yeah. I know the feeling.
Yeah. So that's what took me by surprise, is the emotional change, the impact he had on my soul and my heart. And it was instant. I mean, you can't describe it.
Yeah. I've always said it's like a sense of like love and responsibility that you just can't quite put into words.
Yeah, absolutely. And you won't be able to. You'll just know that other people have been through it when they attempt to describe it, or they've had a kid born and they're seeing them and feeling them and holding them. And yeah. Right. Yeah.
As far as the fighting go too, I know your testosterone, your hormones are all elevated, like so estrogen and testosterone, so that could, yeah. And then also, don't quote me, but there's another hormone that like your body produces more of to help with like the sleep deprivation.
Interesting. I'm sure it's I'm not sure what that is.
If I had a Jamie, I could pull it up real quick.
Yeah, exactly. Jamie, can you look that up real quick for us?
I think it's prolactin, but I could be wrong. Let me see.
So that's
prolactin is a hormone primarily known for stimulating milk production in mammals after childbirth. So it also plays a role in physiological processes. Yeah, so that's what mom's doing.
Yeah, that's what yeah, exactly right. It's probably exactly what's happening with the mom. But so I don't know. I mean, what's interesting is one of the nurses, after Michelle gave birth and everything was settled down and Arik was asleep and bundled up, she goes, the one thing that people don't talk about is the changes that you're going to go through, and you're going to feel things, and you're going to be completely different. And some of it's physiological.
Yeah.
And so, feel free to talk to people about that. I think the other part too is like, one of my colleagues told me this, and I think it was very helpful. She said, just be ready for your wife to hate you for no reason. Like there's just so much pressure and stress in the relationship over the course of like a 1 or 2 month period that is rarely talked about. At least this colleague told me, she's like, I hated my husband. I didn't know why. It's like, it was just something that happened. And so I think there's things that the women go through that aren't really talked about, and then there's things that the guys go through that aren't really talked about. And then between the two of you, it's like, you're kind of trying to both figure this out at the same time, and you're both under a lot of stress. And so that could cause some strain in the relationship. But the good news is that all of that passes. And the other part of it too is you're both in this for the same exact purpose. You're both trying to love and support and take care of and keep alive and protect this newborn child that is completely helpless and 100% reliant on mom and dad. And I think that is so unique to humans as a mammal. I mean, most other mammals, they're born, zebras get up and start walking as quick as they can, right? And so they're not exactly like they're reliant, but they're dogs, I guess, another way too. Their eyes are closed, but it's just such a unique process that humans go through in such a long period of time that child is reliant on you. So it's a very, I don't know, man, it's something that's super special. And the longer you're in it, the more you want it to slow down a little bit.
Question number 2. What have you found about being a dad that has brought the most joy?
I think the part about being a dad that has brought me the most joy is like the unequivocal purpose of being a father and the selflessness of it, whereby you can easily justify suffering for the benefit of your child. And it's easy to do, right? So, like you can be training or you can skip training, and that's okay. If you're not preparing for a fight, why do you have to train that hard, right? Like, so it's easy to kind of come up with excuses. When you have a child, it's so easy to be selfless. And it almost gives you it gives you this massive kind of drive that I don't think anything else could really give you. It's this, this purpose that is unrivaled. And the second part of it is watching him develop and his smiles, right? Because for the first month or two, they're just kind of alive, and they're you're changing their diapers, you're feeding them, you're cuddling with them, but the personality's kind of starting to show through by month 2. They're starting to recognize you a little bit. They recognize your voice a little bit. And then they start to come in to see you and get happy to see you when you come home and get excited. And so them developing into their own personality and their own person, that's another fantastic part about being a dad.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think you're lucky because, in my opinion, you're already kind of a morning person. I definitely was not. Yeah. But I would say fatherhood makes you a morning person the way a shark makes you a faster swimmer.
There you go. Yeah. Oh, by the way, and if you're not a morning person or a night person, it doesn't matter. You're going to become, your body's going to figure out how to operate on much less sleep, and then compartmentalize sleep. You're going to get 2-hour sprints or 3-hour sprints, and lots of disturbances in between it all.
I didn't really drink coffee at all and never understood it until I became a father. And you're like, okay, I get it now. I get it now. And honestly, with me too, it's like you're up, and there's something nice about just having a cup of coffee before the rest of the family is awake, because it's like the calm before the storm, and it's like when you last kind of have control of your sanity as a new father. You're like, all right, let me get some caffeine in me. Let me kind of reflect on what needs to happen today, and then that baby's up and it's game on.
Yeah, exactly right. Yeah. It changes you and changes your habits and changes your structure, your schedule. Coffee helps.
Yeah, and let's keep in mind Michelle is the reason you're a father. She's amazing. I've met her.
Yep.
We got to go on some awesome adventures in Maui that I will always cherish together. So
Yep.
question number 3, any struggle with your relationship after the baby was born? If so, how did you handle it?
How did I handle it? Terribly.
Yeah, maybe we should get Michelle for this question.
Yeah, exactly. Well, there's definitely struggle, and that's what I was trying to allude to, a couple minutes ago, is that I think at some point you second guess it all.
Yeah.
And I think Michelle probably felt the same way. Like I know for a fact, we both were saying, like, should we just figure out how to co-parent? Like, should we just figure out how to co-parent? Because, and it wasn't because we didn't love each other. It was just because we were so stressed, and my communication skills tend to be like very, very forthcoming and very direct. And her communication style is a little bit more reserved, and she likes to go kind of into a silent mode, and I have to go into a overbearing mode. And so there was like, and then, then you're heightened due to no stress or no sleep, you're stressed, and she's been through a marathon, which is birth. Right. So yeah, the women have to heal from that too. I mean, that's a massive undertaking their body goes through. And so, yeah, there was a time where we became very rocky. And then there was a point where we just said, okay, let's agree that whatever we say at night, we don't take personally, right? Because that's when it happens. The struggle happens at night, because that's when you both are super tired, no one's sleeping, and you're trying to figure it out. And it's 2 a.m. or 4 a.m, and you haven't slept all day or the day before, and you're just trying to crash out when the kid crashes so you can get some sleep. And then we got into a routine where the way we kind of fixed at least the physical aspect of it was we would say, okay, I'll watch him from 8 p.m. till 2 a.m. or whatever, and then she would get up and then she'd watch him from 2 to 6, and so she would go to sleep earlier and get from 8 to 2 or 7 to 2, so she'd get 5 hours, and then I'd get 4 hours of sleep, and so at least we were able to kind of balance that off each other. And so that took care of kind of that sleeping part, which reduced some physical stress. And then you know how it is. If you reduce physical stress, your mind becomes calm. And so I think that was how we worked it out on the physical side. And then we just created some general rules of understanding, is like, hey, if we're in the middle of it at night and we're both frustrated, we both might be a little sharp. Let's just try not to take anything we say personally, because, I might say something that has a very stern tone, and she may take it as me being, negative toward her or whatever, and vice versa. She might say something to me that I'm like, watch your tone, right? And so it's just, you got to be careful in those long nights while you're both stressed and sleepless.
Yeah, we call that a night watch in the SEAL teams. And one piece of advice I'm going to give to myself for the future, because we have number 3 on the way, and to any other new fathers watching this, is don't just be like, okay, you're on at 2 a.m. and like, I had it, you got it, high five, go to bed.
Totally.
Give them like a 15 to 30 minutes. I'd even say, like, maybe, okay, say like, Ryan, you've been up all night. Michelle's coming on at 2 a.m. Dude, make her a drink, make her a cup of coffee if she is going to do that, or like a little sandwich, and be like, talk a little bit. Be like, hey, he's been like this. I just changed his diaper 20 minutes ago. He should be good. Don't be that dad that just rolls over and be like, here you go. And Rebecca's probably watching this like, oh yeah, really, Derek? But like,
yeah, great advice, Derek. Where were you?
Yeah. But like, do a few nice things for him. Like cut up some strawberries, like something, because that's going to go so far, dude. It really is. Like,
well, not only that, but sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, it's gonna go far. And how dare you interrupt me? So like cut up some fruit, whatever your girl likes, like maybe put some flowers in a vase and like make sure she sees it. Just be like, look, because one of my good friends that's also a team guy told me this one time. He's like, the child is a product of your love, not the other way around. Your love with her came first, right? Like, we had a male and a female, they came together, and you guys have a baby now. Like, the baby is a product of your love. It's not the other way around. You didn't fall in love because you wanted to have the baby together. And maybe in some places, some circumstances, but 9 times out of 10 for our audience, what we're talking about, man and woman, baby.
Yeah. If you don't mind me building on that, and if you're not going to cut the strawberries up or lay the flowers out, to your point, at least debrief. He ate, he had 3 ounces a half hour ago. He should be good for the next hour and a half. His diaper's fresh. He's sleeping right now. He'll probably wake up in a half hour. I think you're good for now. Yeah.
I do mind you elaborating, but it's fine. Go ahead.
Yeah. I know you do.
All right. So what else? So Eric, all right. Now he's kind of sleeping through the night. He's kind of sitting up, right? You're kind of putting cool outfits on him. You're like, this is my little dude. Like, let's talk about that.
Yeah. So not quite sleeping through the night. But we're getting like he'll have like good nights and then bad nights, right? Like he'll have.
You ever? I know I told you this. I was like, there's going to be a time where you wish you had like a blow dart gun and just like a dart in the neck and he's just out, dude. Have you thought about that? Has that crossed your mind?
It hasn't crossed my mind yet, but it sounds appealing.
Yeah. I mean, we don't want to harm him, but I'm just saying if it's an option.
Yeah. No pain, just let him go to sleep a little bit. That'd be nice. So where he's at right now, he's starting to sleep better. The last week has been rough for some reason. We just recently moved too, and during that move, he would like completely, shocked his system. He was completely out of routine for because we're packing, we're changing everything, change of environment. It was like he can tell we're under stress because we're trying to pack and keep him cool and keep him happy as we're kind of getting everything in boxes. So we're settled down now. He's starting to get back in routine. We had a really good team before the pack. And so now he's getting back into that rhythm. But you're right. Yeah, he's sitting up now. He's starting to walk. He wants to hold on to things and walk. He's starting to say things. So, mama, papa, dada, nice. Those type of sounds, which is pretty cool. He'll just babble. He'll say whatever he wants to say and just chat. And, he's a little human now. You can tell he's like, okay, you are a little human now.
They're not just a blob,
Yeah. Not just something you're trying to keep alive. It's like, okay, we can interact now. He can smile. He has 8 teeth, right? 4 up, 4 down. And so, it's like I said, like the first year, the changes happen so fast, just thinking about how funny it is and how quickly they grow is, I don't know if you know this, but I didn't know this is, when you have a 6-month sized outfit, that doesn't mean start letting him wear it at 6 months. It's like up to 6 months. So like we were waiting for him to be a certain age to start wearing this thing, and it was too big. So we're like, so we finally figured this out way after the fact. So now he's in like 12, 18 month stuff, right? So we can grow into it instead of just constantly growing out of it within 2 weeks as soon as he turns that age. But yeah, I mean, now he's taking shape and he's a handsome little dude and he's super stoked and he's smiling and he loves dad. He loves mom. He loves his grandparents and, very, very happy kid, very inquisitive. He's always looking at things. He's always trying to figure out how things work. He has no interest in kids' toys. He wants to try to take things apart and put it back together. So anything I'm doing, he wants to get his hands on. He just likes to be a part of it. Right. When he starts getting a little too much, I call him the agent of chaos. Because anywhere you bring him, he starts kind of just creating chaos. He'll grab something, throw it, So restaurants, silverware's on the floor, glasses are flying, napkins, plates, doesn't matter. Like just agent of chaos, But he's fantastic. He makes being a dad really, really easy. We got lucky with Arik.
Solid.
Yeah.
Well, there's a lot of factors, and you obviously took care of your health over the years. Like I'm sure you were super locked on. With Michelle, like in her fitness and diet and whatnot.
Sure.
Yeah. These are all like
she's came back to, her body snapped out of pregnancy. I mean, like quick. And she was boxing. Boxing. I mean, not sparring, but boxing, cardio boxing, that sort of stuff, all the way up until she gave birth.
Nice.
And so she was working out, and I think that it was a major factor in the progress of the birth and the physical health of both her and Arik post-birth, because they're both very, very healthy. And we've had 0 issues for a whole year, we feel very blessed for that.
Yeah. I mean, just from being my friend, I've done a lot of meditation. I've done a lot of psychedelics. I've done a lot of like inner reflect, and I have never been able to fully grasp just growing a living being inside my belly, my ribs expanding, my organs being compressed, and then pushing that human being out of me and then holding it instantly. To me, that's still mind blowing. And I've seen it happen twice. Yeah, absolutely. It's
a miracle. I mean, when I was in the labor room and we gave birth at Hogue, Fudge Birthing Suite. So if you guys are in Orange County and looking for kind of a midwife home birth type situation with medical facility, that's the place to do it. It feels like you're in a home. There's plenty of space. You can do water birth if you want. You can do natural birth. I mean, they're so accommodative. But, as, she went into labor, I was kind of looking over her shoulder, and you start seeing hair, and you're like, oh my God, like this is the most beautiful and miraculous thing you've ever seen.
Yeah.
And it's something special. I mean, that'll change you in a fantastic way. So yeah, I mean, one thing is to conceptualize it, like you said, right? You kind of envision this happening and occurring. And then the other part of that is you're a part of that witness. You're the witness of that miracle of life. And that changes you to a degree that I think it's hard to explain and measure and quantify.
Yeah, we did Gabriella in our living room in a hot tub, an inflatable little hot tub.
Yeah.
And we had her on our couch, that evening. And it's just like another day. We just got a new member of the family.
Yep. Yeah, it's incredible, right?
Our Malinois, Lucy, man, she was like crazy protective of Gabriella, our newborn, and attacked our golden retriever. So like, man, if you got a Malinois, like just know that they are locked in to protect that baby from as soon as it comes out of the womb. I think it must smell just like the most amazing thing in the world to them, a newborn baby.
I can only imagine. I mean, their sense of life, right? And then the other part of that too is it's part of the pack. It's the newest member of the pack, and so Lucy may take on that. You might be the alpha, and she might be the number 3 or 4 in line, but she knows her role, which is protect the pack.
Yeah. She also tried to eat the placenta, which was interesting. And then we got it encapsulated, and she did eat it. I like to say, so Lucy's a mom. She's had 8 pups, I believe. And I like to say that she's never had postpartum since. So that's good to know.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Well, there you go. There's the connection, right? She's given birth. She knows what it's all about. Probably very similar smells, right? The iron, the blood. I mean, all of that is probably very familiar to her.
Yeah.
So she knew what was going on. She knew what was going on.
Yeah, absolutely. I would love to breed her, but she's not really the Malinois for it.
Yeah.
And speaking of which, we are supposed to be getting a puppy Sunday from Mike Mesa. So shout out to Mike Mesa. I know you'll appreciate that. If you want a quality Belgian Malinois, hit him up because he's got some of the best in the game. And I will help you train it. And we'll go to the range and we'll shoot and maybe get a Data Army hat for you if you come out and shoot with us with the dogs.
There you go.
Yeah. So, okay, let's bring it all the way to Data Army, right? So you got the hats, you got the hoodies. I'm wearing one of them, Let me show the back because this is my favorite design real quick.
Yep. I Love and Freedom, yep.
That's the one.
Yep.
I mean, they're cool, man. And, as far as like being a dad and wanting to rep it and have these talks, like, man, I don't know of another podcast out there doing this, which is kind of why I wanted to. And obviously you were a lot of the inspiration we've talked about doing like content creation in the past. You guys may have a podcast in the future, which I would love to be a part of.
Yep.
But tell me about kind of like your vision for the brand, what you got available and where you see it going.
Yeah. So this was a creation in those long first weeks of RX life where you're not sleeping. And so I was up and I was thinking, hey, I should just make the best of this. And then I started kind of just thinking about society and a lot of what we talked about today, some mentorship, some very impactful men that have been in our lives that have helped us, shaped us, and guided us. And the concept of the brand was simply to provide a community, inspiration, and motivation for dads to be their very best. I'm a firm believer that society needs strong men and not only strong men, but strong father figures where, a good, strong fatherly figure is willing to set you right. And it doesn't mean they have to be violent or overbearing, but they'll have that talk with you and they'll push you in the right direction with love, right? But also with a level of respect. And so, Dad Army was created to kind of embody that and give fathers a brand to wear and rep and kind of create, quote unquote, an army of fathers that can have these type of conversations, right? Where we're very open about, the impacts that having a child had on a relationship early on. And then, how we dealt with certain issues. And by the way, I mean, I have friends that have kids, their children have already gone through college, right? So, being around other fathers, I mean, you're balancing work, you're balancing careers, you're balancing entrepreneurship, you're balancing relationships with your wife, in-laws, your child. And having that kind of open dialogue amongst men that are in that, are going through it or about to go through it, I think is super impactful. And what I found in launching this brand is we're basically doing everything on Instagram right now, and maybe we'll start to expand, but massive positive feedback where, DMs and communications, people are very excited to kind of rep this type of brand where it's a celebration of fatherhood. But, some of our, like, you'll see like, protector division, like, father should be, here you go,
Yeah, I see it.
Yeah. So, it's like, we're protectors, we're father figures. And so I guess all of that kind of comes into play with the brand. But yeah, this was created like, when I couldn't sleep at night. And so I hired, shout out Tyler Adler. He helped me with some of the design work. He does great logos and great logo sets. Put it on Shopify, found a manufacturer to make the stuff, started making it, and just started running ads and getting followers and engagement. And so now we're kind of off into the races. And so, yeah, I'd like to expand it. I'd like to grow it. I'd like to grow a community behind it. But the whole idea is to just simply be the best fathers we can possibly be. And then support each other in that journey, because it's never easy. It's never easy. You're always going to have setbacks. But if you have a community that can help support through thick and thin and help you walk through situations so that you're not on your own, you don't feel like you're by yourself. And it's not easy. It's not going to be easy at times.
Yeah, agreed. Made me think of two things. For one, necessity breeds innovation in regards to like the sleepless nights and whatnot. And then my second thought was, do you guys have a Discord channel? That'd be really cool. Like, for dads to like hit you up, ask questions, like share info, kind of like a Reddit forum, but Discord's like instant, and you can be a moderator on there and answer questions or whatnot.
Right. We've kind of gone it's been like a year since, I started this when Arc was born, and it's been soft launched. We do have, we've been exposed to Discord. We haven't started one. We've been asked to be on TikTok. We haven't been on that yet. There's some things that I'm trying to line up right now that will give us a hard launch. But so this is like, my really like kind of a passion project where it will lead to something. It's not my main source of income. So I got to kind of focus on family, career path. And then this is kind of like, burning the midnight oil. And
Gotcha.
So yeah, slowly but surely we're building it out. But yeah, I agree with you. Discord channel or some sort of communication where, some sort of forum where you can, live discuss and have, really good quality conversations would be quite additive. So yeah, if you want to be a moderator, man, let's set it up.
Well, I was thinking like gaming, I'm a competitive gamer. I have been since like 2001. Man, if I could like just hop into Call of Duty or like World of Warcraft and know that I'm playing with like all dads, like that'd be kind of cool. That'd be fun.
Yeah.
And then just kind of like make friends that way. Because, it's another thing, like it's not like back in the day where you just kind of take your kid to the park and make friends at the park, because everybody's on their phone and everybody's kind of like, we're more, what's the, like in paintball terms, you'd say you're kind of on an island, you know what I mean? Hopefully you get that reference, but like, you don't have just that kind of opportunity to meet people. So it would be cool to have like, hey, we're all in here because we're dads and we think Dad Army's cool. Like I see that very easily, kind of like 2 and 2, makes 4.
Yeah, that'll be the next evolution. So we do have a Facebook page, and there's some engagement there, but not full engagement. Instagram, there's some engagement, but not that community aspect. So yeah, I think the next evolution of this would be to start to develop those platforms for community, and then of course broaden the product set. But yeah, the Instagrams, dadarmy.co, and then website's dadarmy.net.
Nice.
Yeah, it's fun. It's cool. I enjoy it. I'm proud of it. It's something that is close to my heart, because obviously you built this after the birth of my first son. Built this up. So yeah, it's neat. It's really fun.
When aside from James, like other UFC fighters, who's the first UFC fighter that comes to mind when you think of dads?
Well, I mean, there's hundreds, but one that is that it was part of the SoCal scene when we were growing up was Cub Swanson.
Yeah.
And he's still, involved, obviously Hall of Fame, but, he was training with James and the fight team. And we were watching him fight and when he was fighting at the casinos locally, and he's local, he's got a family. He's probably one that comes to mind just because he's so close. Right. yeah, any fathers come to mind that you're referencing or thinking of?
Yeah, Rampage Jackson, just because I remember him pre-fatherhood, and then I remember, him like hearing he had a daughter, I believe from his wife he met in Japan. Okay. And that's a dude where I'm sure fatherhood changed him.
Yeah, I don't doubt that at all. It changes everybody. I think, and some fathers have that, like, they kind of go away, right? They kind of like shy away from that responsibility, and sometimes they come back into it and want to be that dad, right? Because sometimes maybe it's not a perfect relationship, or maybe even it was not a relationship. But, I think there are cases where it's kind of like, no way. And then all of a sudden it's like, boom, I'm dad and I'm here. Right. And so I think fatherhood regardless will change. If you're a good man, it'll make you a great man.
Yeah, I agree. But it's something you got to work at every day too. Like there's not days off as a dad.
Well, not only is there not days off, there's no time off. So you come home from work and then, your next job starts. As soon as I get home, it's like, take off the suit jacket, take off the slacks and give Arik a hug. And now I'm on, time to go. Then we're jumping in the pool, going swimming, pushing him around, his stroller or trike in the neighborhood, and trying to feed him, read a book to him, and get him to bed. And then, trying to do the same thing in the morning. So yeah, it's 24/7, never stops. And then what's crazy is as soon as you want to break, or you're like, hey, I'm really looking forward to, getting some sleep. So when I'll travel for work every now and then, I'll go visit clients in different states or wherever. But during that time, I miss them. I just want to come back. Yeah. I was like, get me back. Yeah, hey, this is great. I love you guys. I love visiting with you, but I can't wait to get home to my son. And I can't wait to get home to my wife, and I can't wait to plug back in. And so it's so funny. As soon as you're like, wow, it's gonna be really nice. I'm gonna get a good night's sleep, but all you can think about is trying to get home.
Right. The worst is when you're like out and you see a kid that like looks like your son, or about his age or whatever, and you instantly want to be like, oh, I got like a 1-year-old at home. Yeah.
Yep. Totally. Instant relatability. And then the other part, what I found myself doing too, is everyone that has a kid, I like automatically smile at.
Yeah.
Okay. You asked me earlier, I think Rebecca put the question like what changed or something like that. Here's what's changed. When I was a little shithead and I was on an airplane and a kid was crying, I was annoyed.
Yeah. You were that guy.
Now when a kid is crying, I want to do everything I possibly can to let that parent know it's going to be okay. Try to get a bottle or something in their mouth so they'll suck on it to get their ears to pop. And everyone on this plane, who cares the way they think? We know you're stressed. Take care of your kid.
Right.
And because, man, I'll tell you, like, there's no one on that plane that wants their kid to be more comfortable and stop crying more than that parent.
Yeah. I think I told you beforehand, I was like, Ryan, the hardest thing about being a parent is listening to other people tell you how to be a parent.
Totally. Yeah.
I'll never forget the first time flying with Kaylee, right? Like she was crying and, we tried gum, we tried milk, we tried, whatever. And like, I wanted to make this like sign and just hold it up, be like, these are what we have tried, people, because I was so sick of explaining it to everyone around me. And it's just like, dude, like, yeah, of course we don't want to listen to them scream either, but it's like, they're human beings and they're like processing a lot, it's like, I think people, the older they get, they forget how sensitive kids are. And I don't mean like sensitive, like prissy little like babies. I mean, like they're literally more sensitive, like sound, like temperature, like noises. They're more sensitive to
pressure, everything. Yeah.
So like they're just taking in way more, and it's like their sympathetic nervous system is just overwhelmed.
Yeah. And by the way, I was that guy that on my last flight went up to a couple that was crying, and I was like, "Hey, have you tried this?"
Yeah, totally.
And I'm like, "Hey, you got this. Don't worry. I was dealing with this on my last flight. Like you're all set." And the dad's just like, "I've tried it. Like, like I'm like, right, you're good. Everyone understands. So give them just like you got this.
Yeah. Yeah, I laugh a lot when you see like those, like it's just when like in church last Sunday, for example, there's this kind of younger couple in there with their first one running around. And as a second, parent going on number 3, it's like you can just definitely tell, like that's definitely their first kid. You can just I can tell just by the way the dad is holding them, because it's like they always look like they can't figure out how to quite hold them, you know? And then by number 2, you got like one on your hip, you got a beer in this hand, you're like juggling a soccer ball, and you're just like, we're fine. The baby's head's like all over the place. But it's like, they'll be fine.
Yeah. Yeah. And then the third one raises them themselves.
Yeah. Basically, yeah.
That's
I was a middle child, and I think you were too. So I think that's kind of like why we connect. Because the middle child, you get to kind of like look at number 1 and be like, that didn't quite work out. And number 3 is just kind of like always getting a pass for everything, you know?
Yes.
So I remember like consciously as the middle kid, like, you know, wanting to put my song on the radio or whatever. And I knew that if I waited long enough and made everybody in the car laugh, like I could probably get a request out of that, you know? So I'd be like sitting there patiently, I'd crack a joke and be like, hey, do you mind if we listen to like Smashing Pumpkins or whatever, like Green Day? Like, you know, that was using my MO as the middle child.
Music requests and trying to break the silence and get you. Well, totally. I mean, I think the dynamic truly is the oldest is doing all the new stuff.
Yeah.
The youngest is the baby, and you're just kind of there.
You're just there, yeah.
You're just there, dude. And I think that's why you kind of end up being the overachiever, is because the only way to get attention is to keep. You
gotta do something cool.
Yeah, you gotta either be a troublemaker to get the attention in a bad way, or an outperformer to get the attention of an attaboy.
Right.
And sometimes you're doing both. You're like, you're excelling here and then still being a shithead, you know?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Specifically, I used to train because, you know, I wanted to be a Navy SEAL at a young age. Dude. I think like 12 years old, I was like, this is what I want to do, and kind of never looked back. I started running around the lake every day, and it was easy for me because I just would go down the end of my block, go down that hill, you know, towards the Albert Sands and the Chevron and that shopping center. I'd hang a right. So the first like almost mile of my run was like all downhill. So it was great. It was very easy to kind of get in the mode of like, I need to run 4 miles because it's, you know, give or take 4 miles all the way around the lake, depending on like what route you take, maybe like 3.5. And I was running that like every day. And then my brother noticed I was running and he challenged me one day, and he hadn't been running at all. I absolutely smoked him. Like I just crushed him, and I was the middle child. And I was like, oh, apparently I'm a good runner, you know, like maybe being a Navy SEAL is like within my grasp.
Totally. Yeah. And then the training, of course, that came with James and everything else you did think about your journey. Good swimmer, always at the beach. You were shooting people, but with paintballs and learning tactical comms, maybe not in a city setting, but close enough to run and gun and snap shoot people and understand lanes of fire. And then we were training for 3 or 4 years, pretty hard and heavy. Hand-to-hand combat and jiu-jitsu and kickboxing and Muay Thai. So it kind of was a nice way for you to set yourself up for that. So, and then of course you had to actually go do it, which is the most impressive part of it all. But yeah, you definitely went through that journey the right way.
Yeah, me and my buddy in sniper school kept joking, like snipers are born, not made. And like, because you show up to sniper school and it's just test after test after test. And it's just like my buddy failed one of his first stalks, and he's like, I don't know how to stalk. You know, luckily I had kind of woods ball to help me. Stalking is when you're going to like get all your ghillie suit on and all your camo, and you're going to crawl and take a far shot. And I just remember him making me laugh one time. He's like, oh, you didn't get the sniper gene? Like you weren't born with the sniper gene? like what were you thinking coming here then, you know? And I was like, but my childhood, I just felt so blessed. I had access to the beach. I had access to Lake Mishvejo, which was like kind of our little oasis. Yep. I loved running. It was usually nice out. Like I didn't have to like shovel snow out of my driveway to go for a run. Yep. And then I had you as a rad friend that kind of like pushed me, like beat me up a lot and armbarred me and choked me a lot. And I was just like, man, okay, you know, this guy's not going to take it easy. So I need to swing at him and pop him in his nose and like, you know, bob and weave.
Those teeps, bro. You got those long legs, those teeps to my chest. It was never fun to deal with.
I had to figure out what worked for me and really lean into that. And I've done that a lot in life. You know, like I'll be the first to tell you, if your car is broken, I am not the guy that you want to call. But if you need to move and needed some heavy stuff carried and a couch and a guy that's not really going to complain, sure, hit me up. A little older now where I'd be like, bro, let's just like hire 2 movers and get it done, you know, and I'll have a beer with you at your new pad, which I still haven't even been to, by the way. So
you'll be here in a couple of weeks.
Yeah, when we can see the pad, I'd love to do that and pick up some Dad Army swagger and rep it on the dad pod here.
But you know what's nice, Janish, about having like both of us going through that and being sparring partners is we both knew how to put on each other to a level to where we knew it was landing without hurting each other to where we couldn't train the next day.
Yeah.
You know, so it was like this really nice balance of like, oh, I know that stung. And you're like, yeah, that stung. And then you give it back. But it wasn't like, you know, we were dislocating shoulders or hyperextending elbows or pushing subs. You know, we would catch it, hold it, and make sure you knew we had it, but we wouldn't just like slam it on and try to rip something. And then we were sparring, we'd spar hard, but it wouldn't be to try to take each other's head off. It'd be to know that, you know, hey, I made good contact. Next time will be harder. But it wasn't like devastating blows. We were always able to show up the next day and train just as hard. So I think it was a really good balance because I think two things. One is we both knew how to push each other, but there was also that mutual respect where if you landed, you know, like the white belt syndrome, you land on a white belt or someone that's just starting and they come and try to take your head off.
Yeah.
Whereas you land on me, I'm like, fuck, that was nice. That was nice, dude. You fucking land that hook good, but you know, let's keep going. Right. It wasn't this like, I'm going to come back and try to hurt you now. And I think we had that mutual respect where, you know, I remember people would ask us like, are you guys okay? And we're like, yeah, we're just training.
Everybody thought we hated each other.
Yeah. Like, no, we're buddies. We're going to go surf tomorrow. You know?
I remember a lot of times I'd catch you with a jab and I'd give you the eyebrows or just laugh or be like, aha, I gotcha. like there's more of those coming, you know? But on the flip side of that too, I remember a lot of times like with jiu-jitsu, because you had a wrestling background and I didn't, you know, you'd pick up a submission faster or say like I missed a class and you'd be like, hey, you know, we learned triangle from this position, you know, like, and you'd be kind of breaking it down and helping me learn, you know, whatever I missed. So it was really cool to have a friend that I was learning jiu-jitsu with kind of at the same level and same experience so that, you know, if I was struggling with a submission, you could kind of help me pick it up faster or vice versa.
Yeah. Well, and then we had other friends around us too that were doing it. So, I mean, it was a, you know, that Lightning MMA crew in RSM was a pretty solid group of people.
Oh yeah. The best.
Know? And what's crazy is, you know, we had Valentin Kalika, who's one of the best wrestling coaches in the world. And back then, I think I was too stupid to understand how good he was. Because I was just so interested in like striking and submissions that we had world-class wrestling. And I don't think we gave him the respect or the respect to his craft that we should have, because I mean, that's world caliber stuff. And we just thought it was just like a normal wrestling class. And so, I mean, James really brought in some, and shout out to the Frank family, you know, we had just really good people around us.
Yeah, absolutely. We were definitely blessed.
Yeah. And that was a fun time in mixed martial arts too, because that was when the Ultimate Fighter show just kind of started to pop off.
Yeah.
So it was kind of in that era where UFC was starting to catch traction. It wasn't where it was today, but it was starting to go mainstream with Spike TV and the Ultimate Fighting Championship. And so people started to understand the sport, and man, there were like MMA gyms popping up everywhere. I mean, you had Apex, which was Jeremy Williams, rest in peace. You had Marco Ruas, you had James Wilkes, you had Timo Yama. I mean, you had all of these. You had Eric Paulson and CSW. So you had all these camps in Southern California, just in Orange County, and then you had I don't know where at the time, but Huntington Beach, I guess. But just in South County alone, there was like a mecca of really high caliber fighters and trainers. Sub Fighter is another one that comes to mind, right? And so there it was a very competitive market, and really high levels of talent. And I think the coolest part about it is that the trainers weren't just trainers; they were active fighters. They were truly active in the sport and competing. So everything that was being taught was being practiced and used and tested. And if it didn't work, you found out pretty quick.
Yeah. And it was kind of like the Wild West of MMA, because people were like figuring out what styles were going to work. You know, wrestlers started doing really well, like right away. But it wasn't everything. They needed to know how to strike too. And that's where we were pretty blessed having James, because I mean, I still to this day, like James in his prime, man, was just like, it was like watching artwork, watching him strike.
Yeah.
I remember the first time
he was so fast.
Holding the shield for a kick, and the first time James kicked me through the shield, I almost fell over, you know, like it, like my whole leg out. I was like, my goodness, that was through like, you know, I don't know, like 5 inches of foam. I was like, can you imagine just taking that raw dog? That'd be brutal.
Terrible. Yeah, you wouldn't be able to walk. Yeah. It was fun. And then the technique, and I think what was unique about James is not only was he a good fighter, but he's a great trainer. He could break down a technique and get you to understand it and repeat it and then drill it in such a way that you'd be able to use it. I mean, in perpetuity. It was like locked in.
Right.
And so that's unique, right? There are really good fighters, and then there are really good trainers, and James was really both.
Right. Well, not just that too. I mean, I went in the SEAL teams, and like I was getting the rapid assault tactics, like before I ever even touched, like a pair of fatigues or camis, like I already knew knife disarms. I already knew kind of like the baseball bat grip and tucking it under your arm and kneeing the guy until he drops a knife. And what was cool is James never taught us fluff. He taught us stuff that was going to work in a fight,
That's right.
And then he was going to the UFC to test it to make sure, like, he's like, you might have to change your grip here and there, like, in the UFC. But like all that stuff worked, obviously.
Oh yeah. I don't know if you remember that, but that one time we all got to the gym early and we tried to jump him in the parking lot.
Of course. Those are my favorite days, man. Or on the mats too. But yeah, I remember that.
Yeah. He came out with a flashlight, started blinding us and taking us on one by one and blinding us again. He was always ready, man.
Yeah. Yeah, it's good times.
Good time. So what up, James?
Yeah. Come on the podcast, James. You're a dad.
Yep, get on the podcast.
We're at an hour and 40, bro. How you feeling? I'm feeling good. More to talk about? You're all jazzed now.
Yeah, I know. I feel like the conversation started to catch wind in the second half.
I told you we were gonna blow right through this, man.
Yeah. I think maybe if you'd like to touch on just some mentorship stuff, like lessons learned that you would share or that I would share with maybe some of the youth or younger dads, or messages that we'd want to give to ourselves. There was a time in my life in my early 30s where I was trying to articulate lessons that I've learned that I wish someone else taught me. Right. Like actually one of them I came up with after I spent some time at your house when you're back in Otay, and it was like, hey, don't. And I was going through a rough patch with one of my exes. And I remember kind of being a dick, being like an asshole. And I just remember telling myself, like, dude, you don't got to kick her when she's already down.
Yeah.
And like, so it's like some of those lessons where it's like, someone's already kind of down on their luck or like dealing with something. You don't got to just be an asshole and be that guy that said, see, I told you so, and kind of push into it. Right. So even like, you can carry that into any relationship, right? That's just kind of like a life lesson. If your chick makes a mistake or something happens, don't rub their nose in it forever. Just address it, let it go, and then support them and love them, right? And so those are the type of lessons I'm talking about. Another lesson I think that I've learned that I would like to share with whoever's listening is what I found in career and in life is like you have to really think about things in 3 time horizons. You have to think about short-term goals, which are 1-year goals, and you have to have 1-year goals that articulate and follow a 5-year plan. So every single goal is going to get you, every single year is going to get you closer to that 5-year plan, and then don't expect results for 10 years.
Yeah,
because everything starts to really catch traction in 10 years. So if I look at anything I did, whether it was paintball, whether it was fighting, whether it was my career in finance, and even Dad Army, like I'm 1 year into this, I may not see results for 5 years. And I really may not even realize monetary value or any sort of community value for 10. Who knows? It might take some time to build this thing, right? But I think nowadays we all want it now. Social media technologies, it's a now world. And so I think if you can just kind of sit back and say, if we can just slow down our expectations so that we don't give up in year 3, expect it to be a 10-year marathon, and don't give up in that year 3 or year 4, because that's really all your lessons are learned in 1 year, years 1 through 3. You kind of start to figure it out by year 5, and by year 10, you're actually doing something, right? At least that's what I found to be true in my career path and in various projects I've worked on. It takes longer than you think. And so don't get discouraged early on if it's not moving as fast as you think it will. Just stick with it. If you're passionate, stick with it.
Yeah, again, I got like 2 thoughts in mind. So it's like if you're arguing with your girl, your wife, your fiance, whoever, baby mama, and you hit her with that zinger, like you don't need to follow it up. Like when you said the right thing, when you said the meat and potatoes of it, don't follow it up with like, and then this, like let her sit on that, let her process it, because girls do not process the same way men do. Like I've learned that so quickly, you know. She's gonna feel it first and think about what you said second. She's gonna be like, how did that make me feel, you know? Yeah. And then if you hit her with something else, like this guy's just trying to be a dick, you know? Like, and to like keep this in 2025, you know, if you get a text from her and it pisses you off and you're like, hey, is this ready? Like I told you to have XYZ ready. Type that text out, dude, and then delete it and see how you feel. See if you still want to send. So before you hit send, type that angry text. Type those words out, like, you know, blah, 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 blah. I'm so mad, rawr. And then delete the whole thing and like give it 5 minutes. I guarantee you will not type like word for word the same thing twice. And I had a blessing one time as a SEAL, bro. I'm training for Afghanistan. I hadn't left yet. I was so angry. Like Rebecca was pregnant, not even delivered yet, because Kayla was born after I got back from Afghanistan. And I sent this text to one of my older guys. So in like the SEAL teams, you have this like new guy, older guy relationship. It's like an apprenticeship, really. And he was like, whoa, bro, what was that? And he's like, and I was like, my bad. That was like meant for my girl, you know, I'm sorry. And he was like, yeah, I could tell. He's like, well, whatever you're going through, bro, good luck. And it just saved me, because I was like, I don't need to send that to her. You know, yeah. I can keep that to myself.
Yeah.
So that'd be kind of a big piece of advice.
Yeah. Yeah. Very well said. Because the whole, even in business, right? Don't type out an email when you're frustrated.
Oh yeah. Definitely.
Don't type an email. Don't type out an email when you're pissed.
Don't type to all of Legacy and all of your
because yeah, exactly. That's how you lose. That's how you get kicked off teams. You say some shit.
That's how you get kicked off Legacy. Shout out Marky, Kenny, Steve Nobby, Brandon Ford. Who else? I don't know.
Everyone, dude. Everyone you can think of.
Yeah.
The Pitts brothers, Stephen Pitts. You know, Alex Hahn. Yeah. I mean, go.
Tell me how you really feel about Doc, who may or may not be a Doc.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh man.
Lord. That's something else. That was the night that we got rolled up at Lake Mission Viejo.
Yeah. Certainly was.
Yeah, that's right.
What else? So we're coming up on 2 hours, bro. I like to ask, and I asked Taylor this, and I think it's a good way to kind of segue into the end of this podcast is if Art could see this, you know, 10 years from now, 20 years from now, like what would you say to him? What little piece of wisdom?
That's a really good question. Off the cuff, I would say to learn to be empathetic, but have confidence in your core principles, and stand behind your core principles, and your core principles will guide you. And then secondly, pursue passion, and passion will lead to everything you want. Don't chase the money, chase the passion.
Yeah, I would say maybe even like chase the experience and not the outcome.
Yeah, that too. Yeah. And enjoy the journey. Like, don't get caught up on where you're at today. Stay focused on where you want to be and enjoy every step of that process.
Yeah, absolutely.
Life is a marathon. It's not a sprint. It feels like a sprint at times. You know, there are going to be highs and lows and everything in between. But, you know, if you stay core, if you stay to your core principles and you're a principled man, even at your lowest lows, you'll figure out a way to kind of work through that. And we'll all go through them, and some worse than others, but you know, that's just like a ranking system. Like, who's to say, you know, my worst isn't worse or better than somebody else's? We're all going through our own worst, right? It's my worst. And so when you're going through those periods of time, just get back to your core principles. You know, what makes me happy, what brings me passion, and what drives my soul. And then focus on those activities. And if you focus on those activities, everything else will come together. The world will bring you what you need when you need it, so long as you're principled.
Yeah, I like that. Yeah, Taylor's was, you'll never regret being more disciplined in life. And I like that a lot too.
Yeah, that's big.
You know, I've thought about that. It's like, yeah, I've never thought back to like a World Cup or a paintball tournament. I'm like, man, you know, I was snap shooting way too much and I was doing too many drills. Like, you're like, no, dude, if anything, man, I probably could have squeezed in, you know, another run here, or, you know, a few more drills there. Or like when I was training for sniper school, like I could have studied applied ballistics more, which is a great book, by the way. So what else? Anything else you want to get out there in like the last kind of 10 or so minutes here?
No, I think the other part of that would be, you know, if you do find yourself in a position where you don't have, you're kind of lost, or maybe you're kind of down and out, immediately start focusing on the controllables, and don't worry about what you can't influence or what you can't control. Don't worry about what other people are saying or doing or thinking or the impact they have on you. Focus on what you can control. There was a point in my life where all I can control was me working out. And so, so that's the only part that I really had control over, because my career was kind of going through a rocky period. Finances were very rocky, coming off of an engagement that didn't work out. Kind of the world around me, so to speak, kind of crumbled. And so I found myself in this position where I'm like, I'm getting back to basics. I'm just going to at least work out. And that was my one part, right? And through those workouts, you find clarity, right? It's almost like, it's almost meditative in a way. You kind of find clarity and you kind of find yourself again. So that's what I would suggest is, if there's ever low points, just get back to the absolute basics, learn to try to sleep, learn to try to quiet your mind, and then control the controllables.
Yeah. What about any like thanks or gratitude to your own father? Because all of us obviously came from another dad.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. I mean, my dad was I've been through some things with other friends, and I'd ask him like, hey, this happened. Is it wrong for me to never talk to this person again? He's like, nope, check him off the list. I'm like, done. Cool.
Yeah.
Thanks for being a sounding board,
Right.
because there are times where something's going to happen and that's the end of it. And, there's, and you're willing to make that decision. And sometimes you're just going to have someone say, yeah, you're good. You're making the right decision. He also, helped me out in some very stressful situations where if there's nobody else to call, and your dad's always the last call, you're always your dad's always your last call. Right. And so it's like, hey, kind of need help here. And,
right.
So being there, and he was a great dad growing up. My parents obviously went through a rocky period and there were some distance issues. And then you go through your teenage years where you rebel, but Boy Scout coach, Cub Scout leader, soccer coach, baseball coach. So he did instill this athletic work ethic in me early on. And then, when I moved away from the area, obviously distance. And then also I was kind of getting into my rebellious years. And then, the tension between parents, that doesn't make anything easy, as well as being, they were divorced and didn't have a very cohesive relationship at all. And that's kind of probably an understatement, at least back then. And so, you kind of live your life and do what you do and do what you can do. But when shit hit the fan, he'd pick up the call and answer and walk me through it. And so I think that's the important thing, right? Is even though there were issues, when I asked him for help, he was always there. And I think that's the important part of being a good dad, is like, no matter what the circumstances are, you are that reliable, like, cornerstone. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I think that was super helpful for me growing up, for sure. Yeah.
Yeah. After having Kaylee, and Kaylee is 11 now, and like I said, Gabriella is 1. I'm like convinced it's a miracle just to get a kid to the age of 5. The amount of times you stop them from bumping their head or help them, like when maybe they're choking on, their lunch or whatever. And it's like just getting them to age 5. So like, keep that in mind, dude. If you don't have a son yet or a daughter yet, and you're kind of thinking about the responsibility, like it just doesn't take a break sometimes, like you might be exhausted and it's not going to matter. Like you still got to show up and clock in for your kid.
Yeah. The other part of it too is being a father, you actually really appreciate your parents in a way you didn't beforehand. That's another part of this that I think is overlooked is, it's kind of like the first time you see your teacher at a checkout at a grocery store, you're like, wait, you eat food too? You're just not a teacher, like you're a human being, and you go shopping.
Yeah.
You see them outside of the classroom.
Mm-hmm.
That's like what happens, at least for me, when art came into our life and all of a sudden you start looking at your parents going, you did all of this for me? Like, holy cow, sorry for being a shithead. Like you guys put up, you guys had these sleepless nights. You guys had this stress that I'm going through, and you did it with love and did your best. And at the end of the day, like, hey, we're all human. We're all doing our best. And so there's a lot of gratitude that has to go there. And you know my mom quite well. And so, mad props to Gail too. But yeah, I mean, like having that very strong father figure, even if they're just looking out for you from a distance, I think is so important. So very important, because there's never a point in time where a phone call wouldn't be picked up, you know, and knowing that, just knowing that's important, right? And so that gives you kind of a sense of a backstop or security, or, you know, someone's got your back. I mean, there are times where I call you and I'm like, dude, I just need to talk to someone that is like, I know is going to ride or die with me, you know, when you go through these periods of time. And so, you know, it's helpful to have those conversations.
Yeah. Well, we got, you know, at least 3 other human beings counting on us, and, you know, 5 if we're talking about our ladies too. So let's ride more than we die, you know?
Amen, dude. Absolutely. Amen.
Yeah, well, I appreciate you coming on, man. That's all I got for you. Where can people find you? Where do you want to kind of direct traffic to?
Well, website for Dad Army would be dadarmy.net. Instagram is dadarmy.co. And then my personal account's private, but Ryan Martin Official on IG.
Right on.
And then I think we should do this in another year. Do a checkup, because this is pretty
cool. I would love a follow-up with you. And, you know, I knew we'd have plenty to talk to you, bro. I was not worried about that at all.
100%. Yeah, it's been fun, Derek. Appreciate you having me on this.
Yep, out here.
All right, see ya.